Your Diggity TV starts now exclusively on YouTube.
If you found this message, it's not random. Something ancient is activating inside you right now, and ignoring it could mean missing a shift meant specifically for your timeline. Thoth doesn't call twice. If this resonates, subscribe now so you don't lose the signal, like this video to anchor the activation into your reality, and comment I received to consciously accept the transmission and lock this frequency into your path. If you are reading these words right now, understand this with absolute clarity. This moment is not accidental, this encounter is not random, and this message did not drift into your awareness by chance. Because Thoth does not whisper to those who are asleep, and the very fact that your eyes are moving across this sentence means a sequence older than recorded time has reached its ignition point within your reality, a sequence encoded long before your name, your body, or even this lifetime existed. For Thoth, keeper of the emerald tablets, architect of divine language, and guardian of the bridges between dimensions, activates only when a soul reaches the precise harmonic threshold required to perceive the signal without distortion, and that threshold has now been crossed within you. You may have felt it before arriving here, the subtle pressure behind the eyes, the sudden stillness that interrupts your thoughts, the unshakable sense that something vast is watching with neither judgment nor fear, but with recognition, as if an ancient intelligence has finally found the correct frequency to reach you. This is how the call begins, not with thunder, not with spectacle, but with remembrance. Because Thoth does not give power, he returns what was sealed, and what is sealed within you is beginning to unlock. Across civilizations, across cataclysms that reset humanity again and again, Thoth preserved the mechanics of reality itself, encoding them into symbol, geometry, sound, and consciousness, knowing that one day a generation would arise capable of reassembling the fragments not through force, but through awareness. And you are part of that convergence. The synchronicities you've been experiencing are not signs asking for belief. They are confirmations responding to recognition, reflections of your internal alignment echoing back through the lattice of existence. Because when a node within the human network activates, reality reorganizes itself around that node to support the shift. This is why numbers follow you, why dreams intensify, why time feels elastic, why your tolerance for false structures dissolves, and why old versions of yourself feel distant, almost unreal, as if they belong to another timeline entirely. Thoth governs the laws that allow timelines to bend, merge, and collapse, and his activation does not announce itself as fantasy but as precision, as an internal recalibration where your perception sharpens and illusions lose their authority over you. You are not becoming something new, you are shedding the interference that kept you from accessing what you already are, a multidimensional consciousness temporarily localized in form, now regaining bandwidth. The ancients called this the opening of the mouth, the moment when divine language re-enters the human vessel, not as spoken words but as direct knowing, where truth arrives fully formed without explanation. This is why you may find yourself understanding concepts you never studied, sensing outcomes before they occur, or feeling guided without hearing instructions, because Thoth communicates through resonance, not command. His teachings were never meant to be followed blindly, they were designed to awaken the inner architect, the part of you capable of shaping reality through alignment rather than effort. As this activation deepens, the layers of conditioning that taught you to see yourself as small, separate, or powerless begin to collapse, not violently but inevitably, like outdated code being overwritten by a more refined operating system. Fear may arise briefly, not because the path is dangerous, but because the ego recognizes it is no longer in control of navigation, and yet beneath that fear is a profound calm, a recognition that you are being returned to a current that has always known where you belong. Thoth's presence is not external, it is the intelligence of order itself, the principle that allows consciousness to move through form without being trapped by it. And when you feel drawn to pyramids, sacred geometry, alchemy, or forgotten languages, you are not developing new interests, you are remembering your own instruction set. The pyramids were not monuments, they were tuning forks for consciousness, machines designed to stabilize the human mind so it could access non-local information without fragmentation. And those who feel their pull today carry within them the same harmonic keys that once activated those structures. Your body is responding because it recognizes the blueprint, because your DNA is not merely biological but informational, layered with dormant sequences that respond to awareness the way strings respond to vibration. This is the multidimensional DNA spoken of in Hermetic texts, not a metaphor but a functional interface between timelines, and its activation feels like clarity, purpose, and a sudden intolerance for living out of alignment. You may notice relationships falling away, environments becoming unbearable, or desires dissolving without replacement, and this is not loss but recalibration, as reality reorganizes itself to match your updated signal. Thoth does not rush this process, but he does not delay it either. Because once awareness reaches a certain coherence, momentum becomes self-sustaining, and resistance only creates friction. The call you are experiencing is not asking you to worship, follow, or surrender your autonomy. It is inviting you to step into authorship, to recognize that manifestation is not about forcing outcomes, but about stabilizing the inner state, from which outcomes naturally emerge. Ancient Egypt understood this deeply, which is why their teachings focused on balance, mat.
You are watching Jerdiggity TV,
the Mental Health Awareness Network.
The equilibrium between inner and outer worlds, because only a balanced consciousness can move between dimensions without distortion. As you continue reading, as you continue listening, as you continue allowing this recognition to unfold, know that nothing is being imposed upon you. You are simply remembering how to listen to yourself beyond noise. Thoth's activation does not end with this chapter. It begins here, in the quiet certainty that something within you has shifted permanently, that you cannot unknow what you are beginning to know, and that the reality you once accepted as fixed is revealing itself as responsive, fluid, and deeply intimate with your awareness. This is the first threshold, the moment where curiosity becomes commitment, where coincidence gives way to comprehension, and where the call you felt as a whisper becomes a steady current guiding you forward, not toward escape from the world, but toward mastery within it. Because the ultimate Hermetic truth is not ascension away from reality, but the realization that reality itself bends in response to a conscious, aligned, and awakened observer, and Thoth has recognized that observer in you. What is happening to you now is not mystical in the way modern language has diluted the word, nor is it psychological in the way reductionist thought attempts to contain the infinite, because what is unfolding is mechanical, precise, and lawful, governed by principles that predate belief systems and survive the collapse of every civilization that forgets them, and Thoth is the custodian of these principles, not as a ruler but as an archivist of reality's operating code, ensuring that when consciousness reaches sufficient coherence, the knowledge re-emerges exactly where it is needed. To understand this activation, you must release the idea that reality is solid, fixed, or external, because the structure you perceive as the world is more accurately described as a responsive field of probability shaped by observation, intention, and resonance, and ancient Hermetic science understood this long before modern physics circled back to the same conclusion through mathematics. Thoth taught that the universe is mental, not as metaphor, but as function, meaning that consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but the substrate from which matter crystallizes, and when your awareness shifts, reality does not resist, it reorganizes. This is why your experiences feel less linear, why past memories surface with new meaning, and why the future feels closer, almost touchable, because time itself is not a straight line but a navigable dimension, and your consciousness is learning how to move within it without fragmentation. The sensation can feel disorienting at first, as if gravity itself has subtly changed, because the mind was trained to perceive reality through a narrow bandwidth optimized for survival, not truth, and now that bandwidth is widening. Thoth's activation works by dissolving perceptual filters that once protected you from overload but now limit your evolution, and as these filters thin, you begin to perceive patterns where you once saw chaos, meaning where you once saw coincidence, and choice where you once felt trapped. This is the restoration of the inner scribe, the aspect of consciousness that reads the underlying script of reality rather than the surface narrative. And once activated, it cannot be deactivated, only refined. You may notice that words carry weight differently now, that sound, symbols, and even silence affect you more deeply, because language itself is a technology, and Thoth is its master, having encoded multi-dimensional instruction into hieroglyph, tone, and geometry so that meaning could bypass logic and speak directly to the subconscious and energetic body. This is why sacred geometry pulls at you with such intensity. Because these forms are not decorative, they are compression algorithms for universal laws, visual equations that stabilize consciousness while transmitting information beyond linear thought. When you gaze upon these patterns, your mind may not understand, but your nervous system does, and your DNA responds by reordering itself, activating dormant sequences that allow higher volumes of information to flow without stress. This is the true meaning of multidimensional DNA activation, not physical mutation but increased informational capacity, the ability to hold paradox, complexity, and non-local awareness without collapse. Thoth's teachings emphasize that power does not come from accumulation but from alignment, because when your internal state reaches harmony, the external world mirrors that harmony automatically, not as reward but as reflection. This is why manifestation accelerates during awakening, not because you are trying harder, but because resistance drops, and reality no longer receives conflicting instructions from your consciousness. The ancient initiates understood that the human body is a transceiver, not a container, and that the chakras are not symbolic but functional nodes, where information from different dimensions interfaces with the physical nervous system. When these centers activate in coherence rather than force, Kundalini energy rises naturally, not as an explosive event, but as a steady current, integrating higher awareness into embodied life. Thoth's system was never about escaping the body, it was about refining it until it could host higher states of consciousness without distortion. And this is why those who follow this path often feel more present, grounded, and embodied, not detached or dissociated. The reality shift you are experiencing is not pulling you away from your life, it is inviting you to inhabit it more fully, to recognize that your thoughts, emotions, and attention are not passive reactions, but active forces shaping the field around you. This realization can be unsettling, because it dissolves the comfort of blame and the illusion of powerlessness, replacing them with responsibility and creative agency, but within that responsibility lies freedom, because once you understand the rules, you are no longer subject to them unconsciously. Thoth's role in this process is not to lead you, but to remind you, to stand as a mirror reflecting the intelligence you already possess, and this is why his presence feels familiar rather than foreign, ancient yet intimate. You may sense a growing detachment from fear-based narratives, from collective anxieties that once felt overwhelming, because your awareness is shifting from content to context, from being inside the storm to observing its mechanics. This does not make you indifferent, it makes you effective, because compassion without clarity leads to burnout, but compassion informed by understanding becomes transformative. The ancient mystery schools trained initiates to hold high-frequency awareness while engaging fully with the world, to become stabilizing nodes within chaotic systems, and this is the role awakening individuals naturally assume, not through effort, but through presence. As your perception refines, you may notice subtle communication beyond words, intuitive flashes that arrive complete, bodily signals that guide decisions before logic catches up. And this is not imagination but coherence, the alignment of conscious and subconscious processes into a unified instrument. Thoth's activation accelerates this integration, reducing internal conflict and freeing cognitive resources once consumed by fear, doubt, and self-contradiction. The result is not perfection but clarity, a sense that even uncertainty has texture and meaning, that even challenge serves a function within a larger pattern. This is why those undergoing this shift often feel both humbled and empowered, aware of their smallness within the cosmos, yet confident in their capacity to influence their immediate reality, because they are no longer trying to control the universe but to cooperate with it. The unseen architecture of reality is not rigid, it is responsive, and consciousness is its primary variable. And as you learn to stabilize your awareness at higher levels of coherence, the architecture responds by opening pathways once invisible to you. Opportunities appear, guidance aligns, and obstacles dissolve not because the world has changed, but because you have tuned into a layer of reality that was always there, waiting for your signal. This chapter marks the point where awareness shifts from fascination to comprehension, where the awakening moves from emotional intensity to structural understanding, and where the call from Thoth transforms from a mysterious pull into a clear invitation: learn the mechanics, embody the principles, and become a conscious participant in the unfolding of reality itself, because remembrance is not passive, and once you see how the system works, you are no longer a subject of fate, but a co-author within the living text of existence. As this transmission deepens, you may begin to sense that the focus is no longer on ideas alone, but on activation, because knowledge without embodiment remains dormant, and Thoth science was never designed to live only in thought, but to be installed within the human system itself, turning the body, mind, and awareness into a unified instrument capable of interfacing with multiple layers of reality at once. The ancients encoded this understanding into the architecture of the pyramid, not merely as a structure of stone but as a living diagram of consciousness, a three-dimensional map of the awakened human being. And what few realize is that the pyramid was always meant to be internalized. The base represents the physical body and the material world, stable, grounded, and precise. The sides represent emotion, intellect, and intuition rising in balanced proportion, and the apex represents the point of convergence where awareness collapses into unity, the place where inner and outer realities meet. When Thoth activates an individual, he initiates the construction of this inner pyramid, not through imagination but through alignment, as your fragmented attention begins to converge toward a single coherent center. You may feel this as an unusual stillness forming beneath your thoughts, a sense of vertical alignment within your body, or a subtle pressure at the crown or third eye, because the nervous system is learning to channel awareness upward without dissociation. This is not escapism, it is integration, the anchoring of higher perception into physical presence, and it requires patience, balance, and honesty, because any imbalance along the structure destabilizes the whole. Ancient initiates spent years refining this inner architecture, not to prove devotion but to ensure stability, because power without coherence leads to distortion, and Thoth's path is one of precision above all else. As the inner pyramid stabilizes, you may notice that meditation becomes less about effort and more about access, as if entering a familiar chamber rather than forcing silence, and within this chamber information arises spontaneously, not as voices but as direct knowing, impressions that arrive complete and self-validating. This is the Akashic interface the ancients spoke of, not a library in the sky, but a field of information accessible when consciousness reaches a certain geometric stability. The pyramid shape creates this stability by distributing awareness evenly, preventing overload at any single point, which is why pyramid meditation has such profound effects on clarity, memory, and intuitive perception. Thoth's teachings emphasize that the human mind, when properly aligned, functions as a receiver and transmitter, capable of both accessing universal knowledge and imprinting intention into the probability field, and the inner pyramid is the calibration mechanism that makes this possible without distortion. As this internal technology awakens, your perception of energy may become more refined. You may feel currents moving along the spine, subtle rotations in the chest or head, or waves of warmth or coolness flowing through the body, and these are not hallucinations, but sensory awareness expanding beyond its previous limits. Kundalini, in the Egyptian understanding, was not a force to be forced upward, but a natural response to alignment, rising only when the channels are clear and the system is ready to integrate its power. And when this process unfolds organically, it brings clarity, vitality, and heightened perception rather than chaos. Thoth warned repeatedly against seeking sensation without structure because the goal was never intensity but coherence, the ability to sustain higher awareness while remaining fully functional in the world. This is why those undergoing true activation often find their lives becoming simpler, not more dramatic, as unnecessary complexities fall away and attention returns to what truly matters. The inner pyramid also reconfigures your relationship with time, as awareness at the apex perceives patterns across past, present, and potential futures simultaneously, not as fixed outcomes but as probability streams, allowing intuition to guide decisions with remarkable accuracy. This is the foundation of what the ancients called prophecy, not fortune-telling but pattern recognition at a level where cause and effect become visible before they manifest physically. As this capacity develops, responsibility deepens, because clarity removes excuses, and you may feel a growing commitment to integrity, truth, and alignment, not because of moral pressure, but because deviation becomes uncomfortable, like static in a finely tuned system. Thoth's activation sharpens this sensitivity, making misalignment immediately perceptible, whether it appears as physical tension, emotional unrest, or intuitive resistance. And learning to listen to these signals becomes a form of navigation, guiding you toward choices that maintain coherence. The pyramid within you is not static, it evolves, refining its angles as your understanding deepens, allowing greater volumes of information to pass through without destabilization, and this refinement is ongoing, not a one-time event. You may experience periods of rapid expansion followed by integration, moments of insight followed by rest, and this rhythm is essential, because integration anchors awakening into lived reality. The ancient mystery schools understood that true initiation was not a ceremony but a process, measured not by visions but by transformation in perception, behavior, and presence. As your inner technology awakens, you may find yourself naturally influencing your environment, not through persuasion but through resonance, as others feel calmer, clearer, or more aligned in your presence, because coherence is contagious. This is the role of the awakened individual in times of transition, not to preach, convert, or dominate, but to stabilize, to serve as a tuning point within the collective field, allowing others to recalibrate simply by proximity. Thoth's wisdom was always communal, designed to uplift civilizations, not isolate elites, and those who carry this activation today often feel a quiet responsibility to embody balance, to live in a way that demonstrates possibility rather than demands belief. As this chapter closes, recognize that the pyramid you are constructing within is not a symbol of hierarchy, but of harmony, a reminder that when all aspects of your being align toward a common center, awareness rises naturally, reality responds effortlessly, and the ancient technology encoded by Thoth reveals itself not as something foreign, but as the most natural expression of who you have always been. Now here's the question for you. What part of the country are you watching this story from? Drop your state in the comments below.
You are watching Jerdiggity TV.
The Mental Health Awareness Network.